Lightning starts at a single point inside of the cloud, growing in two directions in narrow, branching paths called leaders. This bidirectional leader, one end negative, the other positive, lengthens and branches out as it taps into the charged regions of the storm. Here's video from a high-speed camera showing a bidirectional leader growing in a cloud. These in-cloud leaders can move in any direction, up, down, and sideways. Leaders can branch for dozens or even hundreds of miles across large thunderstorm complexes.
I was so touched by their concern and generosity, and they refused any offers of payment. My awesome friends showed up to the house a while later with dry clothes, and we hiked down to the waiting taxi after a tear.
This is when a performance goal can become dangerous, because you're drawn to find the fastest way to achieve the goal.
These in-cloud leaders can move in any direction, up, down, and sideways. Leaders can branch for dozens or even hundreds of miles across large thunderstorm complexes. Lightning strikes the ground when one end of this bidirectional leader, usually the negative end, heads towards the earth. So lightning striking the ground moves downward, right? Yes, but that's only part of the story. When the descending leaders get close to the ground, one or more upward leaders form on grounded objects and grow toward the descending leader. When one of these upward leaders connects with a branch of the downward leader, the electrical connection from ground to cloud is complete. This is when a massive, sudden white-hot surge of current, called a return stroke, races back up to the cloud through the channel. Most of this process happens way too fast for the human eye to discern. What we and most of our normal video cameras can see is just the bright return stroke phase of lightning. But modern high-speed video cameras can show the progression of lightning leaders in vivid detail. These cloud-to-ground bolts were filmed at 6,000 frames per second. You can see the negative leaders descending to the ground, then the bright return stroke when the
Grüne Lichtpunkte, leuchtende Büsche, verzauberte Landschaften, je nachdem wie viele Glühwürmchen auf
Volcanic lightning is an electrical discharge caused by a volcanic eruption. This rare phenomenon is caused by static electricity generated in a volcanic plume.
For months leading up to this trip, I studied topographic maps and Google Earth, looking for a way into the most impenetrable frontier in the American West. Using satellite imagery, I had spotted a colossal 300-foot deep section of canyon, surrounded by massive towers of stone, that was to be my final destination. No information existed about it anywhere, and there was a chance it was impossible to reach on foot. My first several attempts had not been successful, and a couple close calls had left me worn down and anxious. I can't believe it. We gotta turn back. Still, I decided to give it one more shot. Nothing could have prepared me for how strange it would become the further in I went. But finally, I succeeded, and what I found will stay with me forever.
Unfortunately, they didn't explain their experimental setup. Electrical induction currents that spread out in a horizontal plane from the vertically oriented multi-phase discharge between the electrodes, or reactive currents, or reactive power currents in the case of electricity, that are splashing across the electrode plate. The stream of water hitting the floor is like electric current hitting resistance. Reactive power is the energy of currents that gets redirected by the resistance. Current generates moving electric and magnetic fields.
The tributaries are all deeply incised, short, and tend to end in round alcoves in both canyons, not to mention looking strikingly similar. Both are missing all their excavated material. Where'd it go? No river outflows.
That these trenches mark areas where electric discharges touched down and then traveled along for some distance before they were suddenly quenched. There are features in his laboratory of these trenches.
Cooking up ways imaginary water channels can happen by and then collapse under the surface in these dendritic patterns that just happen to always look like electric scars.
You would see these lateral discharges outer perimeter of the insulator, and so these strikes, these plasma arc strikes, and in conjunction with that you would see the development of these radial patterns as well, which were
Anode and cathode features will appear alternately as current passes through the encircling rings of capacitance, making interference patterns in the hills and crater rims.